Clock certainly ticking on New York City's fiscal future, and when it's all said and done, the NYPD could lose $1 billion. Mayor Bill de Blasio and the City Council have until midnight tonight to deliver a balanced budget. The proposal calls for cuts to the NYPD's $6 billion budget. In an interview last night, the mayor said he was skeptical at first. Take a listen.
When I first heard the proposal and looked at all the details, it was how are we going to keep the city safe? How are we going to maintain our patrol strength with the NYPD? And of course, how are we going to get the maximum investment in youth initiatives and other things that would redistribute resources to the communities that have been hit the hardest? I was skeptical at times about how we could make the pieces fit, but we actually found a way to do it that makes sense.
All right, so NYPD Commissioner Dermot Shea, he is joining me live this morning to discuss how this will impact the city in terms of policing in the city come after today. So good morning to you, Commissioner. Thank you for joining me this morning. And before we get to the budget, Commissioner, I want to get to what we've been following outside City Hall this morning. There seems to have been some kind of clash between those protesters there that have been there peacefully all week long and then the NYPD. Can you explain what exactly led to the response during the overnight hours in the first place?
Yeah, on the overnight hours, we had some incidents of vandalism. I think really disturbing when you see some of the graffiti and things of that nature on some of the statues. You also had attempts to damage some cameras that were in the area, and that's what led to some of the moving around of the resources and then some arrests.
And then this morning, it seemed like we're looking at on our screen right now, police were trying to remove some barricades on the streets, and that's what led to a confrontation, and it got pretty physical at times. Was it because what was happening in those moments those barricades were being moved?
Well, I think, Dan, what you're looking at times here, you're dealing with some individuals that want to provoke conflict. I think we all know that. And the status quo of peace and quiet is not what many are looking for. So in terms of blocking traffic, you saw that going on. You saw the damage to the property. Let me be very clear. We're not going to stand for it. We're going to be out there to keep order. And we are not going to allow mob rule to take over this city. So that's what's behind some of what you saw.
All right, I want to get to the budget now, Commissioner. And the mayor said he seems to have found a solution to cut $1 billion from the NYPD, which is what many of those protesters out there all week long have been asking for. Do you agree, Commissioner, with the number and what the mayor is proposing in terms of cuts?
Listen, I've said for a while, I think we need tools in terms of laws, and we need resources. We've been extremely well resourced. You could say we've been spoiled in some ways the last number of years. It's been a very good time to be in the police world. It is a different world right now, and we're all going to have to make cuts. I think we understand that, particularly when you look at the fiscal crisis with COVID. What concerns me is cuts that have to be made because of tough fiscal decisions versus cuts that could appear to be punitive, if you will. We'll review all the numbers by all measure. When you talk about these cuts, it's concerning. It's going to impact our ability, I believe, to keep New Yorkers safe in some way, shape, and form. But we're also managers, and it's my job to make the most of the resources that we do have, because that's always a possibility.
Can you explain what you meant there? Can you explain what you meant in terms of punitive? Are you talking about you feel that $1 billion may be in retaliation, correct me if I'm wrong, for some of the videos that have surfaced in recent weeks? Is that what you're referring to?
And I don't think anyone listening thinks that this is the climate right now doesn't have an impact on what's going on with the budget. I mean, I think that's self-evident.
The mayor has went on to say that this will not affect safety moving forward. Do you agree, disagree with that statement?
Well, it's my job to make sure it doesn't, but I think we have to also take a look at what's going on. Cutting overtime, cutting head strength at a time of rising crime is going to be an extreme challenge for the men and women of this department. Extreme. I don't think there's any way around that. It's going to impact our patrol strength. It's going to impact our training. And the sad part is, and this is well documented, it's probably going to impact people of color more than anyone else. When you start looking at, we know where the violence occurs in this city, unfortunately. Our job as managers, my job as the police commissioner, to make sure that we are as efficient as possible. We're doing everything we can to keep New Yorkers safe. It's exactly what I intend to do. We're going to have to be creative. We're going to have to make sure that every possible officer is used to the maximum. And that's what I always do, quite frankly.
Commissioner, why would it affect people of color more? It seems that with all that's been said and done in terms of moving this $1 billion to youth programs away from school safety officers and back into the community, specifically communities of color, wouldn't this help those communities?
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, Dan. And I think you know that I went on record willing to move money from our budget to the youth programs.
Yeah.
That's absolutely going to help, but that's one piece of a very complicated puzzle. You also have, I think it's well documented, where most of the violent crime occurs and where most of our resources are as we try to police this city. We've reformed. We've cut arrests, but we still have some challenges. The sad part is that we've had a pretty significant uptick recently in violence, and that's happening in certain neighborhoods of this city, and that's exactly what I'm talking about here. So we have to continue to do better, in terms of making sure that people are not disproportionately affected by the violence.
And I want to talk about
when laws are passed that put people back on the streets. It's certainly not helping, and it's another piece of this.
Yeah, that brings me to this unusual crimes and a spike in crimes this weekend throughout the city. 45 victims, 34 different shootings just this past weekend. Now, this may be a loaded question for you here, but I want to get to it. What do you attribute the rise in crime to? Is it bail reform, or is it more than that?
Bail reform is a significant piece of this. We've been talking about this since November or December, but that's not the whole story. It's bail reform, it's COVID, it's emptying out prisons, and it's now a prison system. I mean, one of the most frustrating pieces right now is a criminal justice system that is just not working. And I'm calling on Albany to fix it. Fix it now. People are dying on the streets of New York City. Cases are languishing and not progressing. I met with the 5 district attorneys of New York City last week on this issue. We have thousands and thousands of cases backlogged, and you can't have a criminal justice system that is not functioning, and we need it fixed yesterday. We really do.
And if it doesn't get amended, if Albany says, you know what, we're going to keep bail reform as it is and continue it on, what can the NYPD do to restore peace on the streets?
Yeah, Dan, I'm not just talking about bail reform.
No, I know.
You have to understand that since the COVID crisis, we have had a court system that's been disarray. And for a while, I think that was understandable. But we're months and months into this system now. Months. We have thousands and tens of thousands of people marching throughout New York City. We've had a great health experiment. What did we learn? What can we do to open up more things?
Yeah.
You're telling me that we can't have 5 people in a room and conduct business in courts, but we can have 10,000 people marching in close proximity, hanging out across from City Hall Park? There's more to this, and it is a concerted effort by many that don't want the criminal justice system to work. Well, when you give in to people that don't want the criminal justice system to work, you're going to see rises in crime.
I want to get your take on 2 more things. One of them being one of the unions wants the NYPD to get rid of CompStat, which you are very familiar with. You used to run CompStat, which tracks police performance. You told me and other reporters last week that it's not going anywhere, and I want to get you on record here about this in terms of CompStat.
Yeah, 100%. I convened a meeting last week with top executives here and told them the same thing. People will say things.
Commissioner, public defenders have said that there may be a way that classifying crime has changed in CompStat to make it look like crime is higher. You know, that was a report in the New York Post a few months ago. Your response to that?
Yeah, well, I would challenge, listen, that's not even worth responding to.
Okay.
So ludicrous. I would challenge any reporter, go sit in a hospital room tonight and interview a doctor and ask them if they've had an uptick of people coming in shot.
And Commissioner, lastly, I think it's a big topic. We touched upon this last time, and I really want to highlight it again, which is trust. And trust not only within your members, but within the community as well. And it's something that I know you're working to restore in the communities. I'm just wondering if you can once again acknowledge how you're going about that, because it seems like it's something that should be first and foremost on the agenda.
It really is. It really is. And thanks for asking that, Dan. It's at the heart of everything we do across this city, really across the country, and many conversations with law enforcement leaders. We understand this in this profession. It's taken a hit recently for sure, but there are so many people out there in New York City that support us. There's so many people that support their police officers, that love their police officers, that want more police officers. I'm watching the video play on your screen. I watched it from the 32nd precinct, I believe, last week. That's really what's going on, and the people of this city and their police department are going to get through this. We're in a very tough time right now, but we're going to get through it together. We're going to continue to nurture those relationships. I've heard many people talk about, look what we've accomplished the last 6 years in this city, 7 years in changing how we police, and that didn't change in the last month. Certainly, the events of the last month or two are a moment in time, but we'll get back to a better place.
And I think that while some of those videos, you addressed this last week with me about how some of those videos are the ones that make headlines, it's equally as important to show the ones within the community as well, to show the good that is also happening. And tomorrow, by the way, we have Chief Madry, newly sworn in Chief Madry of Community Affairs, here on our air, so I'm looking forward to chatting with him. You have given him a clean slate, as I understand.
Yeah.
Commissioner,
Well, thanks, Dan.
I appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.